Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Extend. My name is Adam Ismail, and joining me today after a week away is...
Brendan Norrison, and it's great to be back. It doesn't seem as if Time Extend headquarters were affected by my absence, but yep, unfortunately for all the listeners, your groggy Scotsman has returned. And today we don't even have an agenda, do we really, Adam? It's another free practice episode to kick off our new season.
Yeah, every couple of episodes we kind of realize, like, oh, there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about that we haven't been able to get around to. And this one goes back a while because, Brendan, you went to Sega in October, and I did the whole GTFIA thing that I never got a chance to really talk about on air. So we're going to do that, but also Need for Speed Heat came out, which I have been enjoying. I fear more than I really should be, but it's been a lot of fun, and I just actually wrote a story and posted it to Tom's Guide, all about why I think the game is actually pretty good. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to catch up on. We also took questions as well.
Yeah, we did indeed. Kind of last minute call to arms, so if you've missed out, apologies for that, but even with such a limited time before we started recording this episode, we got some great questions, and there was some stuff during the week as well in general on Twitter, interaction wise. We'll probably call out as we discuss those Twitter questions, but yeah, it's good. I think this is going to be a good episode to just kind of chill out and just kind of discuss various things that have been going on, especially Need for Speed Heat, because I did not see you enjoying that at all, Adam.
Yeah, it's well, this episode is less fanfare than you probably expect from episode number 30. Which is a milestone for us. I never thought that any podcast I made would go to 30 episodes, so that's cool. But yeah, no, Need for Speed Heat. I guess that's a good place to start because so I got Heat kind of with the same feeling with which you picked up Grid, just not really expecting much of it.
Sure.
Didn't really at the time I got it, which was actually on the public release day, not even the EA Access release day. I got code for it through work and started playing it. Wasn't really sure what the reaction was to it from people who had gotten early access, and very quickly realized, like, this game addresses many of the issues I had with the last two games, which I thought were awful. And it also made me realize that, like, the problems that Need for Speed has had in recent years aren't actually that complicated. Like, if you sort the physics out and you get rid of the microtransactions and you throw the game into an open world that doesn't feel like wasted or boring or dry, right there you've solved most of the issues with the franchise. And at that point, it's just making sure the economy works well and just making sure there's enough content and enough things to kind of give you activities to do and keep players happy. And that's, to me, that's exactly what Heat is. You know, it's not perfect. I have issues with it, but the more I play it, the more I feel like it's my favorite Need for Speed game. At first, I was thinking since Hot Pursuit 2010, but now I think it might even be better than that. I'm really, really enjoying it.
It's such a surprise because I don't know about you, Adam, but I just felt as if Ghost Games, for as hard as they try to kind of capture the essence of Need for Speed, it always seemed as if the handling element of the game was going to be a massive bugbear. And from what you've been saying so far in the article that you've written, that I did have a read at, it isn't so much that the handling engine is so fantastic that's what makes the game good, but rather they've managed to tweak it enough that it's actually an enjoyable drive, so to speak. But the overall experience is one that I believe you've actually went on record as saying you're enjoying it a lot more than you have for Forza Horizon 4, which is very intriguing.
It's this weird thing where, like, Yeah, Horizon 4 is probably for the majority of people technically the better game. It runs better, it looks better, it handles better, the world is bigger, and I guess you could argue better. It has a whole seasons thing going for it. It has a much bigger roster of cars, but just this issue that I've had with Horizon is that, and really pretty much almost every recent Forza game, is that the single player is just totally, in my opinion, ruined by the fact that the progression and the economy are essentially, like, the economy is non-existent. I mean, stuff is given away so freely in that game that nothing carries weight or matters. You don't have to be selective about the cars you buy to finish certain events. You don't have to be selective about how you spend your time. You go to a map and you see, 100 different events around the map, and it's unclear which ones you've actually completed and which ones you haven't. And you can also enter any of those events with any of the cars you have, because the game will basically change. If you click on a race with a 90s supercar, then that's the opponents you will have. But if you do it with with a rally car or something you've built to go off road, then it'll throw those cars at you. Like, it's totally one of those games that's built to fit whatever the player feels like doing at any given time, which I don't think that's such a bad thing. I just feel like, I don't know, what I look for from not even just from racing games, but from video games in general, is like, here's a challenge, how do I rise up to the occasion? And I don't get that sense at all from Horizon, but like, none of that is true of Heat. Like, it is very much that classic open world street racer, specifically if we're going to say Need for Speed, like kind of like Most Wanted formula, where, there's risk and reward. You have to be selective about every decision you make. There's a whole element where there's the day racing, the night racing. Daytime, you do sanctioned legal events that earn you cash, and at nighttime, you earn rep. And you can't get by with just one of those currencies in the game. You need both. And you can't even buy cars or anything like that unless you've hit a certain level. The same thing goes for parts with your rep. So you need to earn rep before you can actually spend money. And it just kind of fosters this like back and forth going between both forms of the game just to get by. And it's like, you might earn a ton of rep in one night, and then you're thinking like, now I can buy whatever I want to buy. So then you'll do a bunch of races and earn money, and then you'll buy that thing, and you'll be like, but if I had a little bit more rep, then I could get to level 37 and buy this other car. And it's just like, before you know it, it's like 3 hours have passed, and you only meant to play this game for 20 minutes. And that's kind of what I've had to deal with every single night since I bought it. It's been a lot of fun.
It's almost episode worthy in itself. How much I feel as if this progression path you're talking about has degraded from racing video games in general, because like you're saying, Forza Horizon 4 is a fantastic playground, but in terms of fantastic game about how the events are set up and how you have to work to complete those, I mean, the game doesn't really
or
seem
don't
first. Yeah, or don't, exactly, and that's what I was going to say. The game really doesn't care if you come last or first, in all honesty. But it seems like Need for Speed Heat kind of touches upon that point that we always make clear is really important in racing games now to stand out, and that's take a plunge in your own kind of points of principle about what you want your game design to be like and frame it around that, because the game also has no microtransactions and stuff, which has led to some weird hot takes in games media about what it could mean for the series. But it almost feels like if microtransactions were in here, but people playing the game were forced to actually earn products, the narrative would have been, they forced microtransactions in here because we actually have to race to earn credits and stuff and rep. But in the end, by removing those microtransactions, which I'm guessing might have actually been because of this like perception element of games now, by removing the microtransactions and leaving a game that still demands your time and attention to actually get the stuff you want, it seems like it creates a compelling experience. And to be honest, I can't remember the last time I've played a Need for Speed game for like 3 hours at a time. So hearing that, Adam, that you're doing that, and you have really not been that you've not really been that impressed with the previous two games. I'm somebody who managed to play 2015 for an ungodly amount of time for some reason. It seems like Need for Speed Heat might be exactly what I should have spent my money on in the past 2 months as far as racing games go.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned that Polygon article about how it doesn't mean good things for the series, and Polygon also posted their review. It was written by Owen Good, who is a great writer as far as like he reviews a ton of sports games, and he's awesome. Sure. And his review was basically saying that like I think the thesis was pretty much like, you know, I can't really put my finger on what they should have done differently with this game, but it's fine, but really it just feels like, you know, a step backwards in time. It just feels old and dated. And it's funny because playing it, that's exactly what I love about it. It's like playing Most Wanted again. Like, I mean, it's, you know, it's, the difference is, of course, now I'm like 15 years older, and, you know, if I went back and played Most Wanted today, which I haven't done in a long time, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be as high on it as I was when I was like, you know, 14 or whatever. But like, yeah, it's a very like back to like return to the golden era of street racing kind of game. You know, it's you go into a campaign, you have this really, really cheesy storyline that doesn't make a whole ton of sense. Why is this city that has a huge street racing problem having like a Speed Hunters like legally sanctioned like racing series every single day on public roads? It doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? And then you know, the police force is corrupt, and it's funny because in one sense it's very dated in that it has that, you know, really cheesy plot. But on the other hand, it's very 2019 in that all police are corrupt, and basically all of the protagonists are kind of the youths rebelling against the corrupt boomer police. So I mean, sure, that's I guess appropriate for the day. But you know, it does feel like a classic experience, and that's what I love about it. And the fact that there are no microtransactions, that really contributes to it. I mean, just like the old days when you're playing this game, you just play the game. I mean, you're never pestered to spend real money on anything. From what I've heard, there are a couple packs that are like will help you. I think it's like find some of the hidden content because there are a ton of collectibles in this game. Like there's like Burnout Paradise style billboards and stuff like that. Although those already come up on my map. I don't know if that's because I got a certain code or what. But yeah, so like there's stuff you can buy that helps you do that. But there's nothing like none of the loot boxes that plague Payback that made that game absolutely insufferable. So just by getting rid of all of that stuff and just going back to the open world style of gameplay and just trying to string these long pursuits around, they've made a game that just feels like it could have released, you know, 10 or 12 years ago, but honestly in the best way possible. And you can lose yourself in the game like that. At least I feel like you can. I mean, the multiplayer, from what I've heard, I actually barely have had experience with the multiplayer for as much as I've been playing this game, because like my internet wasn't working for most of last week. So I wasn't really able to do any of just like the online cruising and just start random races with people. I've heard the multiplayer isn't that deep, but honestly, I haven't been looking for a new racing game to satisfy the multiplayer side of things, because every racing game today can almost do that. You know, I've been looking for something to really suck me in single player wise, and that's what Heat has done.
And it just goes to show how long it's probably been since an open world racing game was properly challenging in any way as well. Because I feel as if we're in this weird area with driving games where if something's open world, it's automatically put into that kind of playground box that we're talking about, where you can do whatever you want, you can drive whatever cars you want, and the game will kind of design itself around that. Or in Need for Speed's case, in the last time around, rely on a weird card gimmick through loot boxes. And like you're saying, this game might have been able to come out 10 or 12 years ago, and it probably would have been described as stale and more of the same. But because it has been so long since we've had a traditional street racing open world game, that uses cops really well and has that day-night cycle in there and actually changes gameplay based on what time of day it is. I mean, kudos to Ghost. It seems like they've done exactly what they set out to do, I think, which was to try and bring a bit more optimism to the Need for Speed series. And whilst it might be considered an easy win because it's a type of game that's been done a lot in the past, and I'm not sure what it means for the future of the franchise because I don't think they could just make this a game next time around. It's exactly what Need for Speed needed, and personally, like I said, I've not picked it up yet, but I think I might pick up the Origin trial version, give it a 10-hour sprint, see how I feel. The only trepidation I have is I've seen you said some of the PC performance leaves a bit to be desired, Adam.
Yeah, so I've actually seen, like, I've had my own experience, which has been kind of poor in the performance side of things, and I've seen some people say it plays pretty smoothly. So it might be an issue with my PC, or I don't know, there's nothing as far as I know that's like weird about the way I built my PC, but you know, I guess every machine's different. Basically, the game, there's like no way to run it kind of at like a locked frame rate, so it hovers mostly like between like 60 and 80, but vacillates a lot between those 2 points on my system, and I have it on like not ultra, I have it on mostly high, like between high and ultra settings. And the game looks good, but it doesn't quite, even when it's supposedly telling me it's like going at like 70 frames per second, it doesn't really look like it. And there is a ton of screen tearing, which honestly, it sounds awful, but the screen tearing mostly affects like cutscenes. In gameplay, the screen tearing is not as bad, but it's still kind of noticeable sometimes. And yeah, if they could address that, if they kind of optimized it a little bit better, that would have gone a long way. I mean, on consoles, I think it runs at like 30 frames, so it's not. I don't know, and I also like to be clear, like everyone always said that like, oh, 2015 is such a beautiful game and everything like that. I never really thought that like making everything really dark and then putting rain everywhere made the game look really pretty. Like,
don't forget the Instagram filler.
Yeah, like sometimes that works, and like there are times, you know, Heat isn't an ugly game, but like I don't think it's like, you know, I don't think we need that dark rainy aesthetic fits every single scenario. I feel like it's almost like the late 2010s version of the, you know, the brown sepia filter of the Most Wanted days. So whatever. It's a good looking game. It does have some performance issues on PC as far as I found. And like, you know, as much as I'm saying I really, really like it, and I like don't want anyone to go out and buy the game and expect that, you know, it's perfect, or I told them it was perfect or whatever. You know, there are things I don't love about it. I don't think the physics are perfect, but they are good enough. Whereas before I felt like they were never good enough to allow you to just have a decent experience. And the cops are fun, but also the balancing is kind of off, which, I mean, it can go into that for a while. Basically, if you lose, if you get busted, if you lose a pursuit, they can take a lot of money away from you. It's like a percentage, but I found that percentage changes. It might be based on the heat level you are when you get busted, but you know, there have been times where I've had like 60 grand and they've taken like 15 or 20, and there have been times where I've had like, I don't know, 300 grand and they've taken half of my money, and that's really awful because like you kind of want to, you need to get those high heat pursuits and escape them to really earn a lot of rep. So, but and if you aren't able to and you get busted, then you lose the multiplier you get from heat, which is like, okay, if I push my luck and I don't get all the rep I meant to get, fine. But if you take my money away on top of that, like, well, then you've prevented me from buying a car that would help me escape the cops or upgrading the one I have. So I kind of have an issue with how strong the cops are in this game, but that said, it's still, I mean, that does kind of play into the fact that, you know, Ghost decided that they were going to make players work for it. So I do respect that, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would say that you've been like perfectly glowingly positive about the game. But even still, the fact that it's kind of in your top 10 Need for Speed titles now, as per the Tom's Guide article, which you guys should all go read.
I haven't updated that one yet.
So that's not been updated yet. Okay, my bad. But yeah, that's a little sneak peek, I suppose. Yeah, I think that it's good to see Need for Speed get a much needed kind of, I don't know, bit of safety, in the sense that there is a future for this series, potentially, if they kind of tap into the audience that this game brings in and manage to keep EA's grubby hands off of the whole microtransaction side of things. I'm not sure why microtransactions aren't in the game, but I'm not going to ask the question personally. I'd rather it stays that way if it means we get more competitive, challenging experiences that don't feel a bit underhanded by the possibility to get real cash and game the system almost.
Yeah, I think they just rub people. They rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I think it reflected in the game's sales, actually. Because, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if you put tons of microtransactions in Battlefront or Call of Duty or something like that, those games are still going to sell regardless of the public outcry. But racing games are a niche, you know? So it's like if you're counting on sales from a certain group of people and those people complain, I mean, there's not a massive mainstream market to fall back on. So I think they realized that they couldn't play that game with such a particular genre, and I mean, they made the right choice. It seems like they kind of learned from it. Now, granted, I do worry that like if Heat does really well, I feel like microtransactions are going to make a return for the next game, because if Heat does really well, they're going to want to monetize that. And if it doesn't, then they're going to say, oh, it didn't make a difference. So either way, I think we're going to go back to that. But appreciate Heat for what it is now. It's worth it. And with the holidays around the corner, I've already seen that it's, you know, because games come out these days and they immediately go down price as long as they weren't made by Nintendo. So I've already seen that it's going to be like $35 or something for Black Friday. So that is a good price if you're on the fence about this to pick the game up, and I think you'll have some fun with it. I really do. And the soundtrack is really bad. That might be my biggest issue with the game. The soundtrack sucks.
What is it about it you don't like? Is it just licensed trash for the most part?
It's mostly like trap and reggaeton, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to, like, because the game is basically set in Florida, essentially. I mean, Palm City is Miami. It's Florida, although there are parts of it that are like, well, now we're in like Hollywood Hills, so there are parts of it inspired by California too. It's a pretty diverse map, but anyway, yeah, it's just like two genres that personally I don't have much interest in. I mean, I like some trap music, but the thing is, like, I don't think Migos is great driving music. Like, even the songs in that game I like, I'm like, I wouldn't want to drive to this. This doesn't get me pumped. Like, it makes me feel like I'm on like ketamine or something like that, and I'm asleep. Like, it doesn't get you going. And there's actually some good menu music in the game. Like, there's times where like you're on the loading screen and you're kind of watching the camera pan around your car, and there are visuals in the background that kind of pulsate to the music, and all of the original score isn't bad, but most of the game is licensed music, and I can't stand the licensed music. So there's also not many songs, and there are different songs depending on whether you're playing at day or night or whatever. So
that's cool.
So yeah, it all gets grading pretty quickly, but it's easy enough. Just get your Spotify playlist going, and you'll be fine.
10 hours of Rotterdam Nation and you'll be fine.
Maybe not that.
Well, I mean, to everyone that really wanted to hear us discuss this game, I can only apologise that it isn't a full episode's worth, but as tends to be the time extend way, we've still managed to talk about this game for like 20 minutes, so hopefully that is enough.
I think in the future, there's definitely a Need for Speed retrospective episode in the future. The question is how we do that without it taking up three separate episodes, because there are so many games in that series that I think we'd really have to prioritize. Maybe like a best of Need for Speed and the worst of Need for Speed might be the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the one we kind of talked about, wasn't it? Like, almost, like you're saying, the best games in each of our eyes, the worst ones, and the one that's maybe perhaps the most underrated. Not a fantastic game, but one that maybe gets a lot of flack that we quite enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely a show I want to do in the future. I think Need for Speed's a really, really interesting series because I struggle to call, and even in my story, I struggle to call Heat a return to form because form would suggest some sort of consistency, and that series is the least consistent thing ever. And then when it is consistent, it's usually consistently bad. So, so yeah, it's just really interesting to talk about because it's all over the place. But yeah, we should probably cut the Need for Speed discussion there because we got some other things to talk about.
I guess this is a bit different than normal, but it's two personal experiences that we've both had. I mean, I'll kind of kick off with the Sega chat, given that you've kind of rumbled on about Need for Speed Heat, if that's good with yourself, Adam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you might have seen on Twitter that effectively one of our friends of the podcast, Alex Easter, reached out to myself and Adam and offered the incredible opportunity to visit a Sega headquarters, specifically the one in the UK. Basically, they were interested in getting the two of us down there to play some Virtua Racing, and just basically take part in one of their community live streams that they do pretty frequently, to be honest. They've got a dedicated streaming setup, so it's worth checking out those guys' Twitter account, obviously, if you're into that type of thing. Adam, you weren't able to come given the kind of length of journey that would have been, but yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah, I wasn't able to just fly, 5 or 6 hours to London on the way, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean that's just the way it goes, unfortunately.
We're trying to address that for next year, so there's a possibility.
Definitely.
I'm not promising anything yet, but
keep posted on that one. Everyone who listens knows how we're trying to do a lot more with the pod and kind of branch out a bit, and that's definitely in the plans. But for this particular time, I said yes, of course. I'd love to come down and check out the office and that type of thing. So it was actually a pretty interesting time to go down because it fell around about what in the UK we call October week, which is basically like a half-term time for the schools and that type of thing. So it meant that the prices for travel were insane because people would be going day trips and that type of thing. So it turned out that I had to basically get a train down in the morning and then a sleeper train back to Glasgow at night. So I travelled from Glasgow to London and back within a 24-hour spell. And that was exactly 24 hours, funnily enough. My first train was at 7 in the morning on the Friday, and I arrived back in Glasgow at 7 in the morning on the Saturday. That was the best way to do it, basically, in a cost-efficient way. It was an insane, 24 hours, to put it lightly. I was so fucking tired by the time it was over.
How long is that train ride again?
So, going down the way, it was about 4.5 hours. And
it's not too different than if I just... Sorry, it's not too different than if I just flew there, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing about it, is the train is definitely the best option instead of flying in this scenario, because there was no overnight flights. So the way it worked out, it was cheaper to do it by train, and I'd always wanted to try the sleeper train out before. It's called the Caledonian Sleeper, and basically that one's a bit slower. It's like 6 hours, I think, journey time, because they don't want to make the train rattle about too much and kind of disturb people who might want to sleep. So yeah, I booked my tickets for that, and the part in the middle is the most interesting, obviously, but I just wanted to give a bit of context to how crazy the journey really was. Yeah, so got to London about 2 p.m, I think it was, and the Sega offices are actually, they're pretty remote compared to what you'd imagine. Like, in your head you'd think, oh, Sega office is right in the middle of London. It's not quite like that. I believe it's Brentford, Brentford I think it is, yeah. I always get mixed up between Brentford and Bradford. Sorry, there you go.
No, I will say that the several, I don't know, 3 or 4 times that I've gone into London from Heathrow, you pass the Sega office on your journey, and
Yes.
It's kind of a magical experience, because in the distance you see this building. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have like this like sign with Sonic on it, like above the Sega. Yeah, like above the Sega logo, and it's pretty cool. Actually, my brother went there before I did, before I ever made it there. He took a picture and sent it to me, and I was like, oh my god, that exists.
It is surreal. Like when I was walking up to the building, and they've got like this huge flag with the word Sega on it, the logo. It looks amazing. They've got the huge Sega sign on the building itself, and then the massive Sonic sign as well. And it's so weird, especially for myself. Like, if you had told younger Brent that he would be going to the Sega offices for anything, he wouldn't have believed it. And that's the way it felt. It was such an odd experience. And by kind of day job, I visit a lot of companies, some really cool ones as well, kind of in the video game industry and that type of thing. And you just kind of get used to going on client site and doing work. But when I was standing outside of that building, like, I actually kind of had to take a few seconds, because it was like, this is wild. Like, I couldn't believe that I was about to enter one of the Sega headquarters, basically. And especially when that building would have been a massive hub for activity during Sega's golden era. And they still do a lot out of the UK office in terms of marketing and some kind of small development as well, PR and that type of thing. But yeah, when I got into the lobby and seen the massive Sega sign, and the lobby is incredible. They've got this huge Sonic statue, a wall kind of with all of the consoles they've ever made, and some other really cool merchandise. It was honestly wild. I couldn't quite believe that I was actually sitting there in a Sega HQ.
Yeah, so the real question is, did you find the Dreamcast 2 prototype in their office?
I did indeed. I tried to put it in my backpack, but Knuckles was the bouncer, so he wasn't having any of that. And, yeah, I didn't get out with the Dreamcast 2 prototype, but what I can say is that it's a real box. It exists.
Okay, good.
Disclaimer: It doesn't really.
You know, I had my suspicions, so it's good to hear you confirm them.
But yeah, basically, I kind of got in the lobby, met up with Alex, gave us a kind of brief tour. One of the cool parts of the office is that they have loads of meeting rooms, as you'd expect in any office, but they're actually themed after certain series and games by Sega. So they've got like a really weird, I think it's Company of Heroes, is like a kind of war series that they publish. And one of the meeting rooms is literally like just all in camo. There's like netting on the walls. And there's just, it's really fucking cool. They've obviously got the obligatory like Sonic room as well. And the meeting rooms are just so original and creative. It's just funny to see, because it's a typical place in any office, but the culture of Sega is just everywhere in these offices. Like, I'm not kidding, pretty much everyone's desk had some form of Sonic figurine or plush or like crude drawing of Sonic on the kind of desks. Yeah,
I just want to say, I just want to point out that like we would be the best Sega employees, because like I have like at least 12 different things I could decorate my desk with on my first day there. Like I've got a next gen mag with Scud Race on it. I've got a Stratos and a Delta Integrale model. Yeah, that's just 3 things off the top of my head. But yeah, we would have the best desks. I think it's safe to say.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if we were kind of sat beside each other as well, there'd be like this combined desk of all these old racing games. And
we'd also probably be fired pretty quickly, just because.
Yeah, true.
We're
too
exclusively
much
on
fanboys.
we focus exclusively on the Sega Rally 4, which just isn't happening.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, like I think we've talked at length before about Sega's culture in the UK was pretty fucking huge. Like, people loved Sega over here, so much so that Nintendo was almost an afterthought for so long. It wasn't quite until PlayStation came along that the kind of the brand alliances kind of shifted. But like everyone that works there, just by looking at the office space, you get that vibe that they actually do have a genuine interest for the company. And still have that like the professionalism is also obviously there, but you just there's an atmosphere, and maybe it's just because I'm biased, but you just felt as if like this is what I imagine Sega headquarters to be like. And yeah, there's just so much merchandise everywhere. There's like weird stands you would see in retail shops for like obscure games, and on the stands there's like hard copy unopened versions of like Football Manager 2013 and shit like that. And there's an obligatory game space as well, where during breaks they'll play video games and that type of thing. That's of course where I seen the Dreamcast 2 running Sonic Adventure free.
Right, of course. Yeah, I mean, like, watching the stream, I don't know, at least I get pretty jaded, and like this wasn't my assumption, but I was like, oh, you know, it wasn't my assumption necessarily, but I worried, like, oh, you know, Brendan's gonna go and play Virtua Racing at Sega's office, and you know, Alex obviously knows all about that game, but probably like the other people who are there are gonna be like, is this like Sonic? Whatever. I don't know. It's just, they're not going to be into it. But no, like, you did the stream with you did the stream with Ibs, and I don't remember the name of the other person who was there, but everybody there was like they were like experts at the game and knew exactly what it was. You got your ass handed to you a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
They know their shit, and it's not just like, you know, if you worry that like Sega is basically your front for Sonic now and does really nothing else. No, I mean, it's clear there's people there who still have an appreciation for even the most obscure stuff. Which I was definitely like delayed to see that they like hear all the stories about, like, you know, playing Virtua Racing and like arcades and stuff like that. Especially because living in the U.S., I've never once seen a real life VR cabinet. So yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by just how willing and excited everyone was to like celebrate that less championed aspect of Sega's history.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I loved about the stream as well, because it wasn't a case of, like you're saying, Virtua Racing's just kind of come out on the Switch, let's just get a stream out there. It didn't feel like that at all. The stories being shared on the live stream were fantastic. The engagement with the community as well was great. And like you're saying, it wasn't a case of me going down there and absolutely blitzing the competition. Far from it. As you know, when it comes to Bay Bridge, I'm the undefeated champ. But on any other of those maps, there is definitely some competition, although I was convinced catch-up was on, just to put that point out there and get that typical racing driver excuse out there as well.
On an unrelated note, we are now auditioning to replace Brendan on the show. So
send
us your best clips. Send us your best clips of your fastest laps at all of the Virtua Racing tracks, and we'll see what we can do.
I'll have you know that I did beat Sega Rally 2's 10-year championship mode. So, yeah, I don't think I'll be getting replaced anytime soon, Adam.
Yeah, way to throw that back in my face. Fair enough.
But, yeah, the stream itself was great, and to be honest, I've never actually did a proper live stream like that before, never mind in a studio environment. So it's really weird, like how I personally wouldn't really know this because I don't do much in media, But like those live stream setups that companies have and kind of more professional streamers must have, it is honestly like a tiny TV studio almost. There's so many cameras and like mics and that type of thing that it was almost at first it was like, wow, I didn't know this was like such a serious setup to stream some video games. But no, you've got like somebody controlling all the kind of cameras, the way it's presented, some really incredible equipment in terms of getting the kind of audio quality and camera movement just right. And yeah, it was something that I probably would have been more taken aback by if we hadn't been doing the podcast, funnily enough. Because I think the part that made me realise just to kind of stay relaxed and enjoy yourself was just like, I'm used to talking absolute trash to people over a mic anyway.
Right, yeah. No, you all wouldn't believe the verbal onslaught I deal with from Brendan when we're not actually on the air, and he tries to put on a nice public face, but really this guy's a monster. Yeah, no, it does help out a lot. I mean, I've done some I've done some live streams for Tom's Guide, but our setup was never that sophisticated, and we haven't really done one in a while. So to do a proper one seems really cool, and I've actually wanted to get into the streaming thing, sort of myself, but like, and I think there's a way for Time Extend to do that people will be interested in. I have to get a lot of equipment and sort things out. I tried to stream Need for Speed Heat a couple days ago, and even just figuring out like how do I look at the chat and also like have the game running was like really challenging. And then like I couldn't get my mic to work, and then the game also dropped to like 40 frames per second. So like it's complicated, but yeah, be cool to do that more often.
Yeah, but we've said before, going forward into 2020 and beyond, we're really at that point where we want to expand the community element of Time Extend, because so much of what we do now is being influenced by the people that follow the show, and streaming is naturally something people are interested in, we're interested in it, and yeah, there's definitely potential to kind of go into that medium, and who knows, maybe this kind of Sega experience is exactly the push we need to start considering that a bit more. But yeah, we've got some stuff to work out on that side of things, so who knows how close it really is, but it's something I think Time Extend naturally lends itself to. Even the idea of a live podcast, for example, whilst you play a game or something, there are many avenues that we could look at. I would love to kind of have a Sega Rally stream as well, to be honest. Virtua Racing was fantastic as well, because I was able to kind of say I'd never actually played the game, as you know, prior to the Switch release, so it was entirely new to me. Whereas Sega Rally 95, I think you'd have to kind of shut me up on that one.
Yeah, no, and then in that case, if you really didn't beat everyone, it would be pretty sad. But Alex, retire. I know Alex is a Sega Rally. He's a veteran, you know. That's like his game. He has a cabinet, right?
He does, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mad jealous of that.
I would love to see that face off. That one of you has to be in the Celica and one of you has to be in the Delta.
Of course.
And then you do the next race and you switch off. I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. And then a kind of, if required, best of 3 if it goes to the third race, both drivers in the Stratos.
Yep. Yep, exactly. On Lakeside.
Did we just invent an esport?
I think we did.
But yeah, I think in terms of the Sega Rally, the Sega event to cap it off, fantastic opportunity. Thanks so much to Alex for getting in touch. So plans to have him on the podcast as well, at some point, to talk about some of his favourite racing games, which I feel will go down well. I don't want to ruin the surprise just yet. But I'm not the only person that's been doing something really cool in the racing genre recently. Adam, you have a story as well?
Yeah, oh man. So end of August, early September, I can't remember exactly when it was, but Gran Turismo had their New York World Tour event, which is now we're going back like 3 events because their Tokyo just happened and they're about to have the World Tour finals in Monaco. I think like in a week or in 2 weeks, but Yeah, so they had the New York event, which I actually didn't really know about until like a week beforehand because I hadn't really been following the FIA Gran Turismo Championships, and I was lucky enough to get an invite, and it was, man, it was a blast. It's very rare, even in my job now, which I get to have really cool experiences, and I cover like mostly mobile phones, like that's my beat, and it's a passion for me, and I do love technology, but I've gotten to a point where I've gone to enough briefings and enough events where I'm pretty jaded, but that going to that Gran Turismo event, walking into the PlayStation Theater and seeing all of these rigs, Kaz is standing right there, just a couple feet away from me and everyone else, and he's doing an interview, and it felt unbelievable. And then luckily I was able to connect with Jordan Greer, from GT Planet, who's been on the show. Yeah. And Jordan was fantastic. I mean, he introduced me to a ton of people at Polyphony. He introduced me to Kaz, so there was a good picture there. Yeah, Kent, I can't thank not just Sony, for inviting me, but just like I can't thank Jordan enough for the hospitality and his willingness to introduce me to these people. I mean, like, I was literally starstruck. Like, I've never had that moment before, but like meeting everyone, even getting to chat with Translator San a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. Also, Jimmy Broadbent was there, and Steve Alvarez, Super GT, and so I got to meet those guys as well. They're pretty cool. So yeah, it was just like going to the going to the World Tour. They had the qualifying, and then they had the race the next day, and then they had like the manufacturer final, and then the Nations Cup final. Doing those, and there was an after party afterwards that was a lot of fun.
Oh, I bet.
You were drunk,
were you, Adam?
It was crazy. It was like, it was on like a rooftop in Manhattan, and it was just, I walked up there, and I was one of the, it was probably uncool to show up as early as I did, but it's literally all I wanted to do was just exist in that, like, hang out, talk to other people about all this stuff, and just be in that mindset and be in that world. So like, I showed up there really early, and the sun hadn't gone down yet, and I was kind of looking around, and this was after a Nations Cup final on Sunday, and I'm just like, I'm in New York, and I'm at this bar, and I'm looking at like, the floor and everything, and like they've got the light shining on the floor with the Gran Turismo and the FIA logos like projected onto the ground. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, where am I? This is the coolest thing. Lenny Ibazar, who the guy who pretty much does a lot of the music. I mean, not purposefully for GT Sport, but because he's been a DJ for a very, very long time, but a lot of his music is featured in GT Sport in the menus. He actually DJs their events, their parties, which is crazy. And I have it on Good Authority, although I did not see this at the World Tour. I do have it on Good Authority that Kaz does like to dance when Lenny's playing. So that didn't happen the night I was there, but it has been known to happen.
Yeah, I've seen some of the GIFs and stuff like that, showing Kaz getting down. He's certainly a mover.
Yeah. But man, I mean, just like everyone from Polyphony is super cool, and like, of course, the competitors. Like I met like Mikhail Hazal, I met Cody Nikolakovsky, Adam Siswillo. Interview a couple of those guys for some for a story I did. I actually did when I got there, and before I hadn't talked to or covered anything, they had the Pro-Am press slash like driver professional competitor race, where basically they have people from the press jump into a rig, do half a race, you pit, you switch out, and then the other guy comes in. And my partner for that event, who I didn't know at the time, but was Takuma Miyazono, who that at the New York event had that incredible race at Spa where people thought he ran some really weird strategy where he pit in extra time more than everyone else, and actually did really well. And I think he would have come third if he didn't have a bit of an incident with Cody, and he did really well after that at Hangar 6 in Austria. So I was his partner, and Takuma doesn't speak any English, so we had a translator.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we had a translator help us discuss our race strategy. But the funny thing is, right when I got there, Kaz was doing his recorded interview with Michelin, with people from Michelin, because that was where they announced the Michelin partnership. So basically, me and Takuma are in the audience, and the translator, finds me, and then she's, whispering. I basically had to leave my seat and then go to the aisle between the seats and kneel down next to where Takuma was sitting, and the translator kneeled down as well. And she's like, "This is the only time we can have this conversation because the race is going to start immediately after this interview ends." And we were like, "Can we even talk? Everyone's quiet." And they're like, "Yeah, you can talk. You just have to be really quiet." So basically, I'm whispering questions to the translator. Translator's whispering them to Takuma. And my favorite moment was that, she's like, he's asking, do you have any questions? I was like, I have 2 questions. I was like, one, how do the tires work? And second, when do you want me to pit? And, he's just like, there are 2 tire compounds. Which one do you want to start on? And I said, whichever one you don't want. And he was like, okay, you'll get the hard tires. And I was like, perfect. And he was like, when do you want to pit? And I was like, you can pit between laps 4 and 6. And I was like, as soon as possible. So I made a mess of that race, and if you go and watch it on YouTube, I am not proud of it. So maybe I should be replaced at Time Extend as well.
So we're looking for 2 hosts now.
Right, exactly. In my defense, though, I had to fend off. I mean, Jordan's really fast, but it's honestly unfair. Jordan's fast. He goes to enough of these things where he knows exactly what he's doing. He had experience. But also, among the amateurs, how unfair is this? Among the amateurs was Juan Pablo Montoya, because he was a featured guest at the event. So yeah, I don't think that's really fair to lump him in with the rest of us us lowly writers and press folk.
Yeah, that seems a bit slightly unfair, to say the least. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter too much how you perform, because it's just such an incredible experience. And to be honest, I think nerves would really have maybe gotten the better of me, trying to drive in that environment.
Damn, when I was just doing the 5-minute warm up before the race. And I wasn't even there. I meant to be there for qualifying earlier, but I had missed it because I was at the office, because my office was literally 3 blocks away from Times Square where the race is. So I came in for that warm-up, and never driven on that Thrustmaster wheel before, never driven that setup, and I was shaking. My legs were shaking. I couldn't even apply consistent brake pressure because I was so nervous. And then once I was in the race, I was like, okay, I can, I'm never gonna be the fastest, but I can kind of hold my own. I think the best the best thing that was said about me, the most praise I got, was when Tom Brooks, who does the commentary and is also in GT Sport, he said I recovered well from that spin. So yeah, that's the best praise I got during that whole race.
Get that on your CV, mate.
Yeah.
Key achievements. Recovered well from that spin.
Oh my god, such a great time. Also met a ton of GT Planet people that were luckily around, that had come to that event, and I really hope, God, I mean, I don't think anyone from Sony or Polyphony is listening to this, but please come back to New York next year. It's just none of this stuff happens. I was walking in Times Square before I actually got to PlayStation Theater, and I saw a guy wearing the No Punterino shirt. I mean, that does not,
yes.
that might happen in the UK. That does not happen in New York City. So it was so awesome to have kind of Gran Turismo and racing games and motorsport and everything descend upon New York, because it's just not something we ever have access to over here. And I really, really hope they return. The PlayStation Theater is getting shut down, or I think maybe has already been shut down, but I think Sony's are places they could go, so I'd love to see them return.
I definitely want to go to one of those events myself at some point. I'm not sure when the opportunity would arise, but it's definitely it's on the bucket list because Gran Turismo and GT Sport especially has just managed to cultivate such a competitive community. It's incredible to see, to be honest. It's hard to make a case against Polyphony in terms of, oh, we want to achieve this. Like, they set out at the very start their lofty ambitions, but they're having quite a go at actually meeting them and making them a reality. And the fact that they can close off these championships in fucking Monaco, of all places, it doesn't get more lucrative than that.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, the competitors are just, like, those guys are on their level. And, like, I really had not been interested in esports at all until I went to that New York event. And ever since then, I've been following the GTFIA championships. And the cool thing is, and this is something that, like, I remember, I was chatting a lot with Jordan, because GT Planet also launched their league, which everyone should check out. Although I think they just, like, finished up their, like, first season. But
yeah,
there's different schools of thought about how to do this properly. I think Polyphony kind of hedges their bets in that they have the manufacturers events where it's different teams organized by manufacturers, and you do unfortunately have that, like, balance of, I mean, it's both accurate to real racing and not quite what everyone wants to see, because you have that balance of performance. On the flip side, though, these things are kind of decided pre the events, and, like, if someone qualifies really highly in, say, the Beetle Group 3, the Beetle Group 3 is usually not one of the stronger cars in the Group 3 class, so they probably aren't going to win the race. So, like, you have the issues with the manufacturers championships where it's like not everyone's an equal machinery, but then to counteract that, they have the Nations Cup where everyone is. So they do it a couple different ways. I think they're learning, and I think it's improving, and I think event after event they're displaying pretty much carving the way for how this can be done well. And just, like, the production values of everything are just amazing. Like, sitting in that theater hearing, like menu music from, like, GT5 and 6, I remember hearing from that, hearing, like, Daiki Kasho music as I'm inside the theater,
so
like,
cool.
pipe through the sound system. And then just the way that they've done the whole broadcast mode in GT Sport, the graphics are unreal. It is such a highly produced experience, and I really think just, like, shows everyone how to do racing esports right.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's something that Polyphony, they probably don't get the credit they deserve in the mainstream for what they've actually accomplished. Every so often an article will filter out to the mainstream about what they're achieving, but it's incredible how many people probably don't realise how spot on the production values are, the presentation, the commentating teams are amazing as well.
Yeah, I mean, the commentary especially, like, I mean, I don't think it's as much of a mainstream thing that anyone realizes, but, like, it's such a power move to get fucking Jimmy Broadbent to do your commentary for you. Like, oh my god. I mean, people are, like, absolutely just, he has such a rabid fan base. Everyone loves him, and, like, it's a very astute move to do that. So they are, 10 years ago, there used to be, like, jokes and stuff about Polyphony, at least among fans, that they don't pay attention, that they've got their head in the clouds, that they don't really get it, and they don't know how to communicate, and they don't know how to adapt. But everything I've seen from this event and these events that they've had with the FIA is just, like, they've learned. Like, they are out there, they are, like, getting feedback from the community, and they are a more global company than they've ever been before, and that's really, really exciting to see, because I think that only makes, not only does it make the FIA series and esports better, but it makes their games better. I mean, GT Sport for me has been just consistently this sim racer I can always return to on the PS4 for going on over 2 years now. So
yeah, and GT Sport, like, they may have had a rough start. GT Sport might have had a rough start. So, like, when you consider how it actually ended up, it's a fantastic testament to the tenacity of Polyphony Digital, and to anyone that kind of doubted them along the way, myself included. Humble but high all around, because I think GT Sport is now in a kind of a form where it's hard to deny that it's up there with the upper echelon of Gran Turismo games in terms of it had this objective, and where it's at right now, I feel as if that Polyphony are doing everything in their power to make people believe its vision.
Yeah, and I think they're really slowly convincing a lot of people. I think it's just like getting the word of mouth out there is tough. Ironically, you think about how big Gran Turismo was in the early days of the PS2 and the PS1, and if something like this existed then, I think they would have no problem cultivating that community. But today it's a little bit different. But they're doing the best they can, and I think that if you haven't, if like me, you haven't been bitten by like the esports bug kind of, check out the FIA events. I mean, from what I see on our Twitter, like most of our fans actually pay attention to that stuff, so I'm kind of the one who hadn't. But yeah, if you're kind of looking for that, there are so many different series and promotions, and there's some more independent stuff. And there's stuff that's actually affiliated with the games. It's all different. It's all good. It's all worth checking out, especially because a lot of these guys go between different series. Some of the Williams Esport team and Team Redline, like they did the GT Planet League, so they're getting like the biggest names, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's good to start with the Gran Turismo FIA series and see what that's like. And yeah, I said, I hope they come back to New York, and I'm really excited for the Monaco final because we're gonna get that Hizal versus Fraga showdown, which we've had a couple times, but this time the stakes are, it's for all the marbles, so it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not heavily invested in the esports side myself, but I know fine well that is the rivalry to watch out for, and call me a bandwagoner or whatever, but I'll definitely be watching that final, so to speak.
Yep, as everyone should. So. I think it's a good time to probably turn over to some questions.
Yep, agreed.
So, trying to get the list of questions I've seen here. So this is a good one to start with. Sweet Jones on Twitter asked us, and I saw him ask this to us last night, and I was honestly thinking all night about how I'd respond. And I don't even think I have a great response for it. But he asked us, what non-racing video game have you enjoyed that had decent physical physics besides GTA installments? He's really gotten into Spin Tires Mud Runner on PS4. It's a game he never thought he'd see on console. I have played Spin Tires. It is a lot of fun, especially when you have a group of people together. Brendan, do you know anything about Spin Tires?
Yeah, actually, I have. I've played a bit of it myself, but I'm not an extensive amount.
It's really funny. It's like, especially coming from like sort of a rural part of Jersey and PA, like it does remind me of like hearing stories from my friends in high school. It's like, yeah, I took my Bronco out in the mud and I got stuck and someone else had to winch me out, and it's just like, it honestly sounds miserable, but like when you do it in Spin Tires, it's fun. Just like if you get a small group of people, like I used to play with these two guys, and you just get into stupid situations and you have to help each other out, and you don't even get anywhere. Like you maybe have an objective and you move like 2 feet, but you're laughing the whole time. So Spin Tires is great. But
I've got the Switch version of the game.
I didn't even know there was a Switch version. Yeah. That's amazing.
They ported it to the Switch, and that's the thing. Like I got it like last Christmas, pretty randomly. I've not played much of it, but I'm actually tempted to go back and give it a go now.
It is the best with other people, I would say. It's not really a fun game to play yourself, but yeah. So to his question, what's your answer to this? To give me more time to think.
I would say Euro Truck Simulator. I absolutely.
Is that not a racing game though?
I mean, it's as much of a racing game as Spin Tires is, I would say, because. Okay. Technically speaking, all you're doing is basically taking cargo from one location to the other. There might be a timed element to it, but it isn't primarily about racing. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that it doesn't qualify as a racing game. And Euro Truck Simulator, it's not like anything else I've ever played. is just such a silly idea that should be fun for 5 minutes, but it's so easy to get carried away as you try to park your cargo at the end of a 3 hour journey and completely fuck it up. We're fans of the comedian Limmy, Adam, and he plays a lot of Euro Truck Simulator.
Oh, I didn't know
Hilarious
that.
streams. Oh man,
That's
you
great.
need to check them out. The streams are hilarious. That's basically all he does on Twitch. He occasionally plays other games, but he always ends up throwing his trucker hat on, and he bought a wheel
That's
specifically
amazing.
for playing it.
I love
It's
that guy.
hilarious. I need to send you some clips, but yeah,
Absolutely.
it's weirdly addictive, and the game just does a good job of kind of highlighting how difficult it is to drive these trucks around like normal areas. When you're on the motorway, it's great. There isn't really, on the highway, there isn't really any difficulties. But it's like you get to a set of traffic lights, and it's like you need to make a right hand turn, and the absolute chaos that ensues is absolutely hilarious. The kind of the interior of the trucks have like dashboard cams as well that show you all around the car or the truck, sorry, just like real life, and just seeing like the kind of passenger cars like flickering their lights at you and pumping their horn because you've totally fucked up a right hand turn. Oh, it's hilarious. It's a great game, and it's definitely, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best non-racing games. Although it is a driving game, so it should have good physics, I still don't think anyone would have expected it to be as good as it has, and it's got quite a community as a result.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I know nothing about that game, but you're speaking very highly of it, so I should probably take notice. Yeah, so I have two answers to this depending on like the nature of this question. If we're talking strictly non-racing, but still, you could argue, still definitely driving fast. Crazy Taxi, which like Crazy Taxi's physics are absurd and make no sense and very glitchy and very prone to problems. But for whatever reason, they work so well for that game. And like I have played so much Crazy Taxi over the years that like I'm actually pretty proud of how good I am at that game. I'm not like world record Bay Bridge holder Brendan over here, but but no, I can like get like the without much trouble I can get like the second to highest license on the Dreamcast version. I can do the limit cuts. I can do all that stuff. I can do the crazy starts and get the top speed up to ridiculous points. And yeah, I just feel really comfortable in that game. I've grown to feel comfortable in it like over time, and I've also grown to learn how to exploit it. Just like when I'm going to, for example, the second, what usually ends up being your second stop in that game after the top of the cable car is the bottom of the cable car stop, and I will usually go full drift into the corner of that space, get myself lodged in between like the asphalt on the ground and like the railing to the right, and get my car up on like a 45-degree angle, get it stuck there and not be able to move, but because half the wheels will be in the air, I'll just be racking up money and tips the entire time for like a good like 20 seconds, and then not 20 seconds, but a long time, and get my car to land and then bank all of this extra money. So stupid crap like that you can only do in Crazy Taxi. Yeah, I don't know. If that's what he was trying to say, I don't know if that's the spirit of the question, but
Now, Crazy Taxi is a great choice because, like you're saying, it handles like no other game, and it's not quite exploiting the engine as it is just like making the most of how it allows you to earn cash. And there are so many fucking strange techniques you can do, like basically forcing the front of the car into the tarmac as you go around some bends and crazy stuff like that. Funnily enough, guess that's why it's called Crazy Taxi.
It's almost broken. Like, to be brutally honest, like, you get in such weird. But I think the way that game, you could say that like it's very broken. It's very prone to glitches, and it's a little bit broken. But it's broken in such a way that like you're always moving forward. So like you never, even if something weird does happen with your vehicle, where you're pointing at the sky for a minute, you immediately come back down, like you're magnetically attached to the ground, and you keep going. Nothing really shakes you off your path for too long. That game just keeps you moving, and it works really well. But that's my pick for game that you could almost maybe describe as a racing game. My other pick would have been Halo. Just because I just remember like driving in that game. So like when I played the first Halo, driving the Warthog with the 2.6 was a very weird experience because I never played anything with 2.6 before, like driven anything with 2.6 before. But you get used to it, and then over the years, I remember like when Halo 3 came out, did a lot of like Forge racing in that game, like these tracks created in Forge mode. And like going around them with like ghosts and the vehicles in that game, and like a Warthog or the ATV, and that was fun. Those were fun times. So the vehicle physics in Halo, I think, out of any like first person shooter, they're the ones I prefer, because Battlefield gets a little bit wonky. But I do have a fun time even just driving the Warthog in Halo.
Yeah, I think that's a good outlandish choice as well, to bring it back to something that you wouldn't expect. I mean, if we were going way out like that, I actually quite like the kind of jet ski things in Destiny. I can't remember what they're actually called. I'm pretty sure
the Sparrows,
yeah, those. I mean, you know how big fans we are of Wipeout and anti-gravity racers, and I was actually shocked at how much fun it was to drive around the Sparrows, but also a bit disillusioned by how much you can actually do with them. But like, I genuinely good fun just kind of driving those things about and imagining what a kind of a wave race but Destiny version of that game could have been like, driving those. They were good fun.
Yeah, I can say you're making friend of the show Andrew Elmore and Bungie employee. You were making him very happy, because I know he would love nothing more than for them to make a Sparrow racing spin-off.
Well, he's in the position he can float the question, so I look forward to that spin-off.
Yeah, same here. So that's that. Other questions. Let's go back a couple ticks here on the thread. All right, so Ben Fact asked us another tough one, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Do you think the 90s Super GP Kickstarter project will ever see the light of day? It's like a never-ending development hell story. Yeah, this one's really sad. I hope they get it out. I think they will get it out, but in what shape? Who's to say?
Yeah, this is just a sad one, really, because I think it's kind of briefly been mentioned in a few of our episodes that we're both really hyped about what we've seen from this game, but the biggest issue seems to be almost related to scope creep or feature creep in terms of what they're actually trying to make the game become. Because in theory, if this game had been released with, say, 5 tracks, 10 cars, with that physics engine they've created, we would have probably really enjoyed what they put out based on what we're seeing. But it's just not clear what the hold up is, and the kind of communication is a bit iffy. Nicholas is publishing the game, I believe, which is not really a good sign either. Some kind of horror stories with those guys in relation to indie developers that Kotaku covered not too long ago. It's a strange scenario, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who had been waiting back in like 2012 for like some kind of a modern approach to like a Daytona or a Scud Race was super excited when they saw this game. I mean, Scud Race has always been like kind of my favorite Sega arcade racer. So, and this was called 90s Arcade Racer when they initially started the project. I backed it, and then just after a year, after 2 years, just the updates just stopped coming, and I thought it was dead. I think there was the first big update in a while when they like changed the name of the game and they kind of reminded people it was like actually coming out. I think that was like a year ago or like a year and a half ago. I pulled my backing because I was just like, this just does not seem like it is going anywhere. And I honestly have not followed it much since then. It's a shame because like, God, we've been seeing like between this and like Formula Fusion, for example, just like these racing games that we always wanted made, and it really seemed like crowdfunding could be the way that they could happen.
Yeah.
And these projects, just like something, is the lack of funds? Is it just people being weird? I mean, we've seen it with, I think the most crushing example of that was Drift Stage. So many people were excited for Drift Stage, but it's basically, from what I understand, it's been held in this position where one of the main designers basically just like left, and just the rest of the team has not heard from them in months, years. So that game is essentially never happening, and so many people were excited for it.
It is such a shame, and I've actually got a quote from the Nicholas founder, Tyrone Rodriguez, about the game. This is what he said in September this year, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about, really. The original scope of what was in the Kickstarter wasn't realistic for a single artist to do. He will be able to get a lot of things running, but you need a specialist for a lot of things, like online, which the game will now have. I don't think we could have found a quote that more succinctly kind of backs up what we've just talked about.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, if you go to Kickstarter, you see all of the same pictures and posts and just like the vision of what they want the game to be, of Pelican 13, who was developing it. So you can kind of go through and see the things like their stretch goals and what they wanted to do. A drift point scoring system like Kudos and PGR, local multiplayer. Some of these things aren't as important as others. I don't think we necessarily need... Like, the drift mode would maybe be a nice thing to work on after release, but not something that needs to be in the game before the game comes out. And local multiplayer... I guess it depends on where people are really playing this. I think local multiplayer would be great, but especially if people are playing this on PC, local multiplayer will not be as important. So maybe just focus on the online aspect. Like, I just feel like there was kind of a feature creep when really all this game needed to be, at least at launch, was just 3 cars or three tracks and a car. It really didn't need to be more than that. I do hope we see it one day. If it comes out, I'll definitely pick it up. Like, I'm not over it. But yeah,
don't hold your breath on it. But if it does come out, then of course we'll be there, because any of the gameplay footage that had been released over the previous years looked incredibly promising. Hopefully it doesn't turn out to be another one of these stories that the game doesn't end up getting released, because it looks fantastic from what we've seen. But to be honest, it's not something I think about quite regularly now because of the current state of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things about it is just looking at, like, even the earliest photos. Like, obviously it probably made like Unreal Engine 3 or whatever was available at the time, but the way the graphics were done, it looks so like a modern Model 3 racer. Like, the way the textures have been done, how reflective the cars are, like, the art direction is totally on point from Pelican 13. I mean, this guy, like, or whoever was doing that, I mean, they really understood how to make this game look authentic in a way that, for example, if you see Daytona Championship USA, they did not at all try to make that game look anywhere near authentic. So hopefully it'll happen, but we'll see. I think it'll come out. Just again, who knows how much longer it'll take and what state it will be in.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just have to wait for the latest Worthwhile update and then take it from there.
Yeah. And then the last question was if we have, from Ali Sems, if we have ever played Fuel, and I haven't. So that one's easy for me to answer. Yep.
Well, I've played it. And yeah, Fuel is an odd game. Once again, one of these ones you could probably make a podcast discussing it. I don't know how much you know about the game, Adam. Are you aware of it at all, or is it just a case of heard the name and that?
Is that the one that was done by like the ATV Off-Road Fury people, or am I getting that confused with something else?
I'm just checking now. No, they didn't actually create that game, but I think I know what one you're talking about. This one was actually developed by Asobo Studio, French video game company. They have such classics in their library as Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up, and Toy Story 3. But the funny thing about these guys is that they're now helming the latest flight simulator game for Microsoft. Like that
Oh, wow.
massive fucking flight simulator game. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Cool.
there's a reason for that. Because Fuel actually, I believe, still holds the world record, or it held it at one point, for the largest playable area in a console game ever.
Wow. I didn't know
So, yep, they have some experience in creating massive environments. Um, and that's really what Fuel was sold upon, the idea that it had this incredible landscape of playable area. The problem is, though, as far as I'm concerned, it was a very empty game, as you can imagine would be the case trying to do that on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Um, the game ties into it being a wasteland, but that doesn't kind of cover up for. I mean, I would consider it a boring experience, but I can also see the flip side of people really enjoying the fact that they had so much crafted area to kind of navigate, and I guess that's what made the game special in a way. It wasn't randomly generated or anything like that. The creators had literally modelled every single like square inch of the environment.
Yeah, it dropped right at that time of like every other game just having, just being a four-letter word, like
Yeah.
fuel, grid. I mean, not even just racing games, like Rage. I don't know. There was like Ruse or something. I don't know. Rise.
Yeah.
Just all these games that just interchangeable names I just didn't pay attention to. But I never really was into the extreme sports thing that much. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about, because, like, if Nintendo made a 1080 sequel, I would go out and buy that yesterday. But yeah, I was never really into the whole, like, ATV thing or, like, motocross. I do remember playing ATV Off-Road Fury at a friend's house and thinking that was a lot of fun. But
Sure.
that was like kind of the lone exception for me. So yeah, never played Fuel. Never really had an interest in playing Fuel.
Yeah, it's hard to recommend, I would say, purely because the actual racing mechanics aren't that great either. It it's a bit of an anomaly, a cool idea and concept. Asobo clearly have talented developers that, for whatever reason, haven't quite had the chance to kind of stretch their creative muscle in many titles. But hopefully, if we do something like Flight Simulator, they might get other opportunities. But yeah, Fuel is. It felt like a game made to get that kind of world record almost, because I just personally find the whole wasteland kind of environment incredibly boring, and when it was as empty as Fuel was as well, it just there really isn't that much to see here. And I'm reading an old Eurogamer review, and they actually point out that the game had 40-kilometre in-game like sight lines, so the draw distance was insane, but there was still nothing to see, so it didn't really make a difference. It felt very barren to me, and it's not one that I think I could go back and play, because I distinctly remember from playing it before that I got bored of it pretty damn quickly.
I wonder how the size of that world. I mean, sure, it's larger because you say it holds a record, but like how much bigger it is than, for example, like Test Drive Unlimited's Hawaii, because that. I don't know. I thought that was massive. I feel like still for the time it's like bigger than any racing game, at least I played now. I feel like it's bigger than Forza Horizon 4's world.
Yeah, I would actually. I know for like other open world games, different genres, people often make kind of layered maps that show how map size relates. Never seen it though for many racing games, so that'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I totally agree.
Somebody needs to do it for racing games, because I saw I remember seeing it for like GTA and Breath of the Wild and stuff like that. And yeah, that'd be really cool.
It does have a PC port, Fuel, so we've said before, like the PC effect on many older games, even outside of the racing genre. For example, I downloaded Sonic Generations recently, and I'm having fantastic fun revisiting that on PC. Maybe Fuel benefits from the PC upgrade, but I'd highly doubt it, because it seems like game design was more the problem as opposed to kind of technical limitations.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah, I mean, based on what you said, I probably won't play it. But now I know more about it than I ever did before, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that not quite crushing disappointment, not quite good point to end is still a point to end on for this episode.
It is, yeah, it is. Pretty full show. Glad we got to catch up on some things we hadn't had an opportunity to talk about, and yeah, and not really sure what's next for us. I mean, we have a bunch of different ideas, but we're also heading into holidays, so I can't promise that we're gonna have another show up before Thanksgiving. I mean, this one's coming right in the back of the cart cast because we really wanted to have that free practice in to catch up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. And regardless, lots of people we want to talk to. I have to work on the art still for the next season, which you'll see when I post this because this is the 30th episode. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I'm really hyped to see that art myself, as I'm sure the listeners are as well. In terms of what's coming next, like you say, get into the holidays, everything gets mad busy. One thing we are trying to block out for sure among that time period is some form of Christmas cast or holiday cast, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have had some fantastic ideas, a lot more than we thought we'd get, I think. The only one I think we can safely rule out is the MotorStorm Arctic Edge retrospective, because we're just not that large on the series, are we, Adam?
I mean, I really like MotorStorm, but I don't think that game really deserves a single look. I mean, it's a good game. It's a really good port for the PSP, but yeah, not gonna do that. Similarly, I know Fernando recently asked us on Twitter to do a Juiced retrospective. That's also something I'm sorry to say I have zero interest in. So I don't know if you want your own your Juiced show. You know, maybe you start up a rival podcast at Time Extend.
Juiced Extend,
yeah. But yeah, there's the Christmas cast, definitely something we want to do. Absolutely, block out time for it. Someone also had the brilliant idea to stream Ridge Racer 4 on New Year's.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Which, like, I don't know how we do that. I don't know who is free on New Year's or can do it, but it'd be cool. I'd be into that if there was a way to do it. Maybe like I could stream it. If you're not available, I could stream it on what would be like New Year's in the UK, because that would still be before New Year's for me, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's once again, it's just such a busy time period. It's a fantastic idea. Any excuse to bring Ridge Racer Type 4 back into the Time Extend realm is something that we will always back.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, that just about wraps it up. So everyone, thanks for listening, and yeah, we'll see you on the other side.
See you next time, guys.